How can we learn about Henry VIII's progresses to Reading?
Archaeology!
Our research has led us to believe that Henry stayed at Reading Abbey. Today we are going to try and find out more about the Abbey so that we can visualise where the king stayed and why this location was clearly of such importance to the town.
Oh, where's the Abbey gone? Unfortunately, Henry VIII ended up shutting down Reading Abbey during the dissolution of the monasteries. After that, lots of his stone was taken away and used in other important buildings like Windsor Castle. Parts of the abbey were then turned into a royal palace by Elizabeth I, Henry's daughter, and it was also set up to act as fortifications during the English Civil War. Eventually, it fell into disrepair.
How will we find out about it then? What is an archaeologist?
Archaeologists study the human past through material remains such as objects, buildings, and landscapes.
Okay, let's start with the buildings and landscape. Let's think like an archaeologist and see what we can find out.
We're here at St. Lawrence Church, which would have been attached to the original abbey and would have served as shopkeepers in the eastern part of the town. A lot of the documentary evidence that we've found about Henry's visits in the local archive comes from the accounts records of this church. Behind us is the site of the Hospitium.
Hospitium. Think hospitality. This is where visitors to the abbey could stay.
It was so large that it could hold up to 400 guests at a time, suggesting it was a very popular pilgrimage site.
Was this an attraction for Henry VIII when he visited?
It would certainly help when housing the huge entourage he brought with him. Here we are at the inner abbey gateway. The abbey would have had 5 of these in total.
This one wasn't the most important though. It gave access to the monastic quarters, so it separated the public areas of the abbey from the private areas where the monks lived.
However, it does give us a sense of what Henry's entrance into the abbey might have looked like. We're in the remains of the abbey church, which is estimated to have been 450 feet in length.
That's well over a football pitch!
The floor would have been covered in beautifully laid, decorated and coloured tiles, a magnificent place for the king to attend religious services while here.
Archaeologists can find out such amazing things from examining ruins and landscapes. They also use lots of scientific techniques to preserve and restore the buildings. Did you know that they restored the mortar using a real medieval method, a hot mixed lime mortar, and they had to use wooden buckets like in the Middle Ages, as it would have burnt through plastic buckets?
I'll tell you something else that's really cool. Have you ever played Assassin's Creed? Did you know that there's something called ARCHAEOgaming, which is a branch of archaeology that uses video games for archaeological purposes?
All you gamers out there with a love of history, archaeology could be for you!
Coming here has given us a sense of how magnificent and imposing the abbey would have been. It's no wonder Henry chose to stay here.
What about objects though? Don't archaeologists look at artefacts as well? Where will we find those?
Time for a trip to the museum! We also explored some other really interesting artefacts which brought the abbey to life for us.
This is part of a plank of oak. It would have been positioned horizontally to rivet the bank of the Kennet which runs next to the abbey. This would have allowed boats to moor close to the wharf side.
So I wonder, did supplies for the king's visit come by boat?
This is a floor tile that would have most likely been in place in the abbey church that we visited the ruins of earlier. It gives a real sense of magnificence of what Henry VIII would have seen when he visited the church.
I bet this looked incredible. This is a roof tile from the abbey. We can tell that it's a roof tile by comparing it to the floor tiles we've just explored. It's thinner than a floor tile. It wouldn't need to be as thick because it wouldn't have people walking all over it. Also, it's much lighter, which makes sense as a heavy roof is not a good idea for building. We think that this hole through the centre would enable a wooden peg to be slotted through the tile to hold it in place. This tile is really helpful in helping us to visualise the colours of the Abbey building and what it would have looked like.
This pot size and the fact that it doesn't have a handle suggests it was used as a kind of mug.
It must have been quite heavy and difficult to hold when it was full.
It probably would have been filled with weak ale. This was safer than drinking dirty water.
I doubt Henry would have drunk from this. Surely he would have had something made from gold or silver.
Perhaps this is the type of mug that those in his lower entourage might have drunk from during his visits. I wonder how much ale was needed for all of them.
Many shoe fragments and leather cut-offs were found when the Abbey Wharf site was excavated, suggesting that tanning and leatherworking took place in the area.
Perhaps Henry's visits really benefited businesses such as these.
We've had such an amazing day using archaeology to learn about the past. Let's take our findings back to school and analyse them further.